Okay, so this right here is my Carver travel banjo that I just got earlier this year. It was my Christmas present to myself. And for a couple years now, I've been playing my family heirloom banjo, which is over 100 years old. And I love it, and it's great, but I don't want to take this thing around with me everywhere I go, beat it up, leave it in hot cars and stuff like that. You know, I want this thing to stay in great condition, and so I decided to get something like this that I can kick around and beat up and leave in the car, and the kids might step on it, and it's no big deal. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mean to deprecate the instrument. Brian Carver himself on his website, carverbanjos.com, he calls all the banjos he makes a work of art, and I don't disagree with him. I want this thing to stay in great condition, and so I don't mean to say that I don't care about it, but it is the perfect kind of sort of utilitarian instrument that I can take with me wherever I go, and if it gets a couple battle wounds, no big deal. I'm not worried about that. So it's cost on his website. This banjo costs $250 right now, and then another $25 for shipping. So you're looking at a grand total of about $275. Which I will say, for something as cool and unique and fun as this was, because you put it together, it's a kit, that's not a bad deal. I've been looking at Brian Carver's banjo kits since, I don't know, 2012 or something like that, about 10 years now, and his banjo kits, even though they were a little simpler at that time, they used to be around $100. Like the travel banjo kit, used to be able to pick one up for $100. I regret that I did not do that at the time, but I don't regret purchasing this one for $250 because they kind of have come a long way. His older banjo kits, the travel banjo in particular, it used to be a little bit more two-dimensional, looked almost just like a flat piece of like plywood or something almost. I know that's not what it was, but that's sort of what it looked like. It almost looked like a wall hanger or something, not a real banjo. This does not look like that anymore. This looks really good. He routes the sides of the neck, so it's nice and curved. Looks really good. He put some craftsmanship into the thing, and I love it. I love this banjo. It's not perfect. It does have, there are a few, I guess, complaints about it that I could come up with, but for the most part, the entire experience has been great, and I love to have it. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about it for a minute, and let you hear how it sounds. I'll play a little more in a minute. You might be able to see here, just to get this out of the way before people start asking questions, but I went ahead and put my own tuning pegs on this. These are actually tuning pegs from that banjo. Years ago, before I was any good at playing the thing, I put some planetary tuners on that, and people can cry about that if they want, but I went ahead and did it, and I've been carrying these around because they're original as far as I can tell. I think the keys here are even ivory, and in fact, one time, because one of the screw heads here, one of the flathead screw heads here is stripped a little bit. I had to use a hacksaw to trim it down, or to cut the groove out a little deeper. And years ago, I went into the hardware store to try to get replacement screws for this because they're machined, And what I found was that the screws at the hardware store, none of them matched the threads for these screws. These were machined before thread sizes were standardized. So these are cool, These are like vintage tuning knobs, and I used the maple tuning pegs that Brian Carver sends with the banjo initially, and I used them for probably, I think I gave it about 5 days before I couldn't take it any longer. And it's not that they were bad, but it's that it was just a little bit too difficult for me to get the granularity I needed to get the thing in tune. And, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert at the banjo, and I'm not very good with these friction tuners, but I just thought, what the heck, let's throw these on here. I won't have to, bore out the holes any further. Let's just throw them on there, and I love it. And not only are they easier to turn because there's not as much friction, wood against wood, but the posts here are actually a smaller diameter. So if I understand right, that gives you a little bit more, it gives you a better ratio with a little bit more granularity in order to be able to better fine tune the instrument. So far, it's made a big difference for me. I can get this thing in tune much, much easier with these. Now, you know, if you're somebody who's got a lot of experience with friction tuners, then the ones that ship with the instrument are probably not going to be a problem for you. But for me, it was just a little bit too much work. I didn't want to have to, you know, it made it so that every time I played the instrument, it was not as much fun. And it was also during that time when the strings are still stretching out, the leather tailpiece here was still stretching out, so it just made it easier for me to sit down and enjoy the instrument and not have to worry so much about just trying to get the thing and keep the thing in tune. So anyway, that's my own little custom thing I did there. Let's see. So as you can see, the construction's real simple. He's got a neck, which is just basically, it's I don't know, it's practically a 2x4. It's just been routed and shaped in a couple key spots to give you what you need to actually make an instrument out of it. I went ahead and put my own hardware on here. This does not come with the instrument. I made my own little strap out of a rope. And I went ahead and I'll tell you this, I put the hardware right here for the strap because this was the best place for the way that the gravity makes the head of the instrument fall. If I put the strap button closer to the pot, then the head wanted to fall. It made it stock heavy, headstock heavy. So I've ended up putting it right here, and then of course the other button I just put at the very end of the dowel, which I like and I don't like at the same time. I might change that at some point, but we'll see. But anyway. So it's great, you know. The fretboard is super flat. The frets intonate very, very well. I have had to fiddle with the bridge a few times to adjust the intonation as everything has settled. It seems like the spot that the bridge needs to be in has shifted a little bit, and maybe that's just me. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know. I don't have quite enough experience with banjos and setting them up and everything. But one of the problems that I ran into, heads up for anybody who's going to build one of these tack head kits, one of the problems that I ran into was that I did not stretch the head enough when I put it on, I don't think. I don't think I did. And I say that because you might not be able to see it here. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. It sinks in a fair amount. And let me tell you this, if I look at it right now, it is actually, as the weather has dried up and we've got a little bit of an east wind going on, the head has actually become more taut than it was. At one point, the head had sunk in so much and the action was so low that I actually had to put some wedges under the bridge here. I don't know if you can really see that. There you go. I had to put some wedges under the feet of the bridge there in order to raise it up enough so that I could actually get my thumb under the fifth string when I would play right here. I had to start using the scoop, which I am not yet accustomed to in playing the banjo. It's not something that I've gotten very good at. So be forewarned, if you're going to build one of these, make sure that you tighten the head enough. Now, I don't have any experience with tack heads. Maybe it's supposed to sink in a little bit and I just don't know any better. I don't know. But either way, to me, it seemed like a little bit too much. If I was going to do it again, and next time I put a head on this banjo here, I'm going to make sure that the head is a little bit more tight than I made it. Brian says in his video, he's got an instruction video on his YouTube channel that goes from start to finish. He explains to you how to build this banjo. He's got one for each of his banjo kits. And in it, you know, he stresses that you don't need to over tighten it, you know, just a couple pounds of pressure probably. And, you know, I don't think, this is not a criticism towards him and the way he explained it, but in my mind, I just translated that as, oh, I just don't need to pull that tight. And I didn't. And then I ended up with this. So probably my own fault. I should have probably tightened more than I thought that I needed. Lesson learned. I know for next time. That's the one problem I ran into. And then the other problem I ran into is I actually was one tack short My kit came one tack short. And so what I did, I can't show you, but I took the tack from the middle of the bottom here, the one that would be under the tail piece. It's not. You can kind of see in there, it's not in there. And I popped it out and I filled it in the one spot that was missing. It was one of these right here. So not the end of the world. You have to do the same thing if you want your head to sit flush against the neck here, against the scoop. You got to take that one tack out. He explains it in his video. And then you got to take the other two. If you put them in before you put the head on, if you all put them in evenly spaced, then you got to pop 3 of them out here, take the middle one out, and then spread the other 2 to the side. So as you can see, these 2 are a little bit closer together than the rest of them as they go around. I just eyeballed this, really. You know, he explains that when you're putting it together, you basically just split it. You do top, bottom, left, right, and then just split in the middle, corner, 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 corner. You do 4 and then 8 and then around until you've got it filled out and you've used all the tacks. And I just eyeballed it, and it turned out fine. You know, the sag was not, it was from me not pulling on the head enough as I put it together. But I don't know. I don't know if he sent me one tack short on purpose, like maybe I misunderstood how I was supposed to do it. But I ordered this banjo on December 16th, which Brian Carver says on his website is the busiest time of the year for him. So it wouldn't surprise me if he sent me whatever he had left or something like that. Now look, this does not bother me at all. I'm the kind of guy when, you know, I run into a problem like that, I'm just going to make it work. I'm just going to make it work. I would have ordered more tacks if I had to. I wouldn't even have emailed him or complained or nothing because, you know, it's just not that big a deal. It worked out just fine, you know. So it's, you know, I'm not criticizing Brian Carver. I think he does great work, and I'm super happy with my banjo. So another thing to be forewarned about, when you get it, it's going to be rough. You got to sand it yourself. If you don't read, you know, the description on his website, you will have to sand this yourself. Now, the neck, like I explained, is already routed out. It's already got a curve on it. You could shape this a little more if you wanted to. I probably could have taken out some depth here and made it a little bit thinner. I didn't see the need to do that, so I didn't shape anything. All I did was I just hit the whole thing with some 320 sandpaper. And he recommends, I'm pretty sure he says, start with 320 and go to 220. I didn't want to wait till the next morning to go to the hardware store to get some 220, so I just used some 320 that I had sitting around, and it was good enough. It was good enough for me. I sanded it down. It's still rough in a couple spots where sort of the grain of the wood is a little bit harder to smooth out. Right here I can feel it a little bit. Right here, sort of on the, yeah, mostly on this side of the neck a little bit. But, you know, I mean, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't slow me down. It doesn't affect my playing at all. Not even a little bit. And, you know, if I wanted to, I could just take the hardware off. I could just disassemble the thing because that's what it's made for. It's made for you to be able to disassemble it and put it in a suitcase or something. If I really wanted to, I could just disassemble the whole thing, sand it again, and then throw it back together. And then, you know, put some more finish on it or something. Throw it back together. Problem solved. So, not a big deal. So, Brian recommends for sealing the wood, for finishing it, what he recommends using is gunstock oil. And I didn't have any gunstock oil sitting around, and again, I didn't feel like waiting until the next day to go, you know, pick some up somewhere. But what I did have sitting around was Howard's Feed and Wax. And my wife turned me onto this stuff, and we've started using it for finishing pretty much all the wood in the house. And I've become a big fan of it. And I thought, well, you know what? Why not try that? Because the gunstock oil, it appears to me that it gives the wood sort of a glossier finish. And I am not a fan of glossy finishes on wood, and especially not on my instruments. I like a matte or a flat finish and as close to the natural wood as I can get. And you get that with Howard's Feed and Wax. And I also really, really like the color of the wood that came out. It's got a nice dark, rich tone. It's even a little bit red when it hits the light just right. I'm really, really happy with how it came out. and I could probably hit it again. I just did one coat and let it sit for about 20 minutes, just like the bottle says to do. And then came back and wiped it all off, and then I hit it with another coat, let it sit for another 20 minutes, and that's it. That's all I did. And I'm thrilled with how it came out. I absolutely love it. I think it turned out great. I like how Brian, what he does on the back of his headstock here is he puts his, he stamps his Carver Banjos trademark into it. Don't mind this hole here. That was something, that was me experimenting with a tuner. That's not Brian's work. Same with this right here. I tried to affix a tuner in 2 spots and I didn't like either one of them. So that's not Brian's work. That's my work. And overall, the whole build was super easy. Most of it, I didn't even watch his video for how to put it together because it's just simple. I mean, you throw some screws in the dowel here. He just tells you like stupid, simple stuff like don't over tighten it, you know? If you don't know what you're doing, watch the video for sure. But I mean, if you've been working with this kind of stuff for a long time, then I mean, there's just not a whole lot that you need to be told. I mean, it was so easy and fun to put together. Let's play it. Oh, one more thing too. The distance from the tailpiece to the bridge allows the strings here behind the bridge to resonate a little bit when you're playing it, which will produce some, in my opinion, pretty disgusting overtones. I learned playing that banjo. It took me forever to figure out how to play that thing right. I used to think that I couldn't get it in tune when I was new at playing it. And then one day I put a hat, somebody told me put a hat in the pot between the head and the dowel. And I did that, and all of a sudden the thing sounded amazing and I could actually get it in tune. And what I realized was this section of the strings, same thing on this banjo, was producing a bunch of overtones. I got a little piece of foam that I stick under this one. Same thing here. I got to put a little piece of just anything. I mean, you know, I'd like to get something that looks a little nicer than this, but I put a little piece of this, of some rolled up something that I just found sitting around the house, just to dampen those strings so that I don't get any of those overtones. I cannot stand to play a banjo with all those overtones. It just drives me absolutely insane. So, heads up, if you get one of these and you feel like you can't get it in tune, that might be what it is. So here, I'll play a little bit for you. It's pretty quiet for what it is, which is not a surprise because, I mean, if you look at that pot, there's no depth to it, which I've been thinking real hard about how I might try to modify that. I'm not going to lie. Nothing wrong with how Brian makes it, but, you know, I'm always just trying to figure out ways to make my instruments more the way I want them to be. And so it's not very loud, not a surprise. Sometimes if you're in a noisy place, it's a little bit hard to get the volume you want so you can hear what you're doing. But that's okay, not the end of the world. But it sounds pretty good for what it is. So, so far what I really enjoy playing on it is 2-finger thumb lead stuff. And I get a little bit more volume out of it. I find maybe my claw hammer needs a little work. Maybe, you know, maybe it's my technique. Maybe I'm not experienced enough. I mean, I've only really been taking banjo seriously for about 2 months now. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. But here's a little 2-finger, just messing around. So, not too bad. Sounds pretty good to me, as far as I'm concerned. And then here's a little claw hammer. Let's see, do something simple. Amazing Grace. If I can hit the notes. one of the things that I really like about it too is because it's not very loud, you can get away with a lot of kind of fun-sounding strumming stuff, which I don't see a lot of people do on the banjo. Maybe there's somebody out there doing it, but I haven't seen a whole lot of it. It seems like everything is, either old-timey Appalachian stuff or bluegrass, which I hate, but that's okay. Everybody can like what they want to like, Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with bluegrass, even though it sucks. So I was kind of messing around, and I found out you could do some sort of interesting strumming things with it, and it still sounds pretty good. I tried to recreate that on this banjo, and without seriously dampening the head, it just didn't sound good at all. So, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the banjo, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an expert, and disregard everything. So it's fun. You can do a lot of interesting things with it. To me, it's almost like a tenor ukulele. The size of it, it's bigger. It's definitely got a longer scale length than that. But I like that. I'm a big fan of smaller instruments. For a long time, I tried to get into the ukulele, and it's a little bit too small. I kind of have big hands, so I can get away with it, but it's kind of hard to fit the stuff that I want to do on that little tiny fretboard. And I even looked for ukuleles that had like wider fretboard, wider nut widths, and all kinds of different things. And even though it's cool and I like it and I think it's fun and interesting, I definitely prefer this. I definitely think that this is for me. If I want a small instrument that's travel worthy, this is like perfect. Ukulele is a little bit more travel compatible. But this is great. I think this is, if you're going to play the banjo, if you play the banjo and you want something to travel around with, this is a great option. Now, as far as the nylon strings go, I'm used to playing steel strings. I've tried nylon strings on this banjo, my old banjo, 2 times over the course of several years. Again, I wasn't very good at it neither of the times I tried it, but I did try it, and I could never enjoy it or love it nearly as much as I do with the steel strings. It seemed to me that it takes more effort and it's a little bit more difficult to play, and I was worried that I would have the same problem with this banjo. And I do have the same problem with this banjo. Now, there's plenty of people who play on nylon strings all the time and it doesn't seem to bother them, and I think that's great, but for me, I just don't really enjoy it nearly as much. So I think pretty soon here, and I even almost did it today, I'm going to put some steel strings on this and try that out. I will make a video about that too, if I end up doing that, just so people can see that, because so far I haven't seen anybody do that. Before I bought this, I tried to watch every review I could find on YouTube for Brian Carver's banjos, and in particular the travel banjo, and I couldn't find any of them where anybody had put steel strings on the thing. So I think I'm going to try that out. I don't think it'll be too much on the neck. I was a little worried about the neck getting a little too bent or something, but I don't think it'll be a problem. I just want to experiment and see what I can get away with this thing. So I think that'll be fun and interesting. But anyway, yeah, this is Brian Carver's banjos, travel banjo, and I think it's great. I gave it like an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, sounds about right. 8.5 out of 10. One little thing I had with Brian was I knew that the banjo would arrive late because I ordered it dead in the middle of his busiest time of the year. 9 days before Christmas. My fault, not his. And I got when I put in the order, I immediately got an email confirmation saying your order's been received, it's been submitted, here's what you paid and everything, this is what you ordered and what you're getting. I got an invoice immediately. And then, nothing. Now, I waited patiently until January 10th or 11th. And I started to get a little worried because not only had my banjo not arrived, which I didn't expect it to by that point, but I also had received 0 email communication from Brian. Now, I didn't know what to expect, but 0 communication did concern me just a little bit. So I just got on, I sent him an email just saying, hey man, listen, I'm just a little bit worried because I haven't heard or seen anything. I just want to make sure there aren't any problems and that I can still expect a banjo. And I never got an email back. And I want to say like 6 or 7 days went by, and then the banjo just showed up. It was just here. USPS showed up, dropped it off in the box, and I immediately got on, and I emailed him again. I just said, hey, never mind, man, the banjo showed up. Thanks, everything's great. No big deal. So I guess I would say don't expect a whole bunch of communication. He's not, he's just one guy. He works all day making banjos. Don't expect him to communicate like some big business does. He's not Amazon. He's not going to send you a notification when your box is 10 stops away. So just manage your expectations. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect, so I started to get a little concerned. Brian, I hear the rumor is that he was going to school and training to be a commercial pilot, and then he decided to quit doing that so he could make banjos. And I'm really glad he did, because I love my travel banjo kit. So thanks, Brian. I hope you see this someday. Thanks. This is great. I love it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer the questions. And that's it for the day. Thanks for watching.